pā mai whiti runga, ka pā mai whiti rau. Haua te toki nui o taka aku he kuraranga hine o hine mahui ka whiti raua. Tu mai te tō ki o haumi e. Hui e, tae ki e. This week on the Hui.
With the state of school lunches under fire,
I'm absolutely appalled and disgusted.
one Far North Kura is committed to cooking quality kai.
A kid who gets a feed learns better.
We get a kick out of them and they get a kick out of our kai. So, choice. Yeah, winning.
Plus the fleet of traditional waka and kaihoe that made up the flotilla at Waitangi.
Mo ngā tau rua te kau ko tahake nei, ko hoki mai tō tātou waka ki te whakanui I ngā rangatira I Waitohungia I te tiriti o Waitangi.
Te hunga kua karangatia ki raume mene atura ki tua haramai. Haere, tātou kei te ao maramati he wa Māori, and welcome back to the Hui. School lunches are an institution around the world. Japan's been providing school lunches since the late 1800s, while South Korea spends $9 billion a year on feeding their students for free. But in Aotearoa, Ka Ora Kāoko was only launched in 2019, providing free lunches to nearly 250,000 students. This year, however, funding for each meal has been slashed by more than half, and critics say the coalition government has turned the program into a hot mess. Mea nei te purongo, a John Boynton.
School lunches under fire.
I'm absolutely appalled and disgusted.
If you don't like the food, ultimately, you can make a Māngai sandwich and put an apple in a lunch bag, as I've said before.
There's been one child that was briefly admitted to A&E.
But one Far North Kura is committed to cooking quality kai.
A kid who gets a feed learns better.
Te kapahaka o muri whenua. Welcomed home to te kura kaupapa Māori o te rangi aniwaniwa.
E hari ana te ngākau ka whakanui I a rātou.
Fresh from representing the Far North at te matatini. Many members are former students, proud products of this kura.
Ko tētahi kōrero o tō mātou kura, o te aho matua, kia tūhei kura mo te whānau hapu iwi.
A philosophy which helps the kura stand out as an example of excellence in another area.
When you look after the environment and the surroundings of our tamariki, and they feel safe, they grow and thrive.
In recent weeks, the government's attitudes towards students in Aotearoa has grabbed headlines.
David Seymour's school lunches program is looking more like a dog's breakfast today.
How's that? Yeah.
With the Ka Ora Kāoko free school lunches program in the firing line.
Food coated in burnt plastic.
A society that doesn't have its kids as its first priority is not itself a healthy society.
Tens of thousands of children are being hospitalised for poverty-related illnesses.
More than a decade ago, Hone Harawira introduced the first school lunch bill to Parliament.
What was your initial motivation when you did put that bill together?
Yeah, just quite simply feed the kids. A kid who gets a feed learns better. They're not so distracted, they're not so emotionally unstable. If you're taking that hunger out, if you're taking that stress out of a family, you're giving families the opportunity to also be more positive about the society that they're a part of.
His bill didn't pass at the time, and further school lunch bills also failed to pass in Parliament.
Māori are the majority ethnic group at low decile schools.
It wasn't until 2019 that Ka Ora Kāoko came to life.
The free school lunches program has been given an A+ by Auckland University researchers.
It makes me full. It's helping the community.
This initiative providing free healthy lunches to 250,000 students in need of support.
How did you envision it working?
Oh, pretty much like how it is. that schools are funded to do so.
And the kura he founded, Te Kura Kaupapa Māori o Te Rangi a Niwaniwa, quickly signed up.
We chose to internalise it, and we were lucky, of course, that one of our whānau happens to be a chef.
I'm in my 4th year in this type of mahi for the kura.
Annie Adams is the school's head chef.
I've never been in an environment where you get so much more from coming to mahi.
What was your background?
From restaurants to cafes, at least 25 years of experience, and that is where my heart is, in the kitchen. Ka pai?
How important is it to have a commercial kitchen in a school?
It's invaluable.
Annie cooks 200 school lunches every day alongside her kaimahi, Jordan.
Giving your very best to tamariki, you know, that are basically your employer. We're going to get leftovers from this. We're doing spaghetti bolognese for our tauira today. I know there's going to be a lot of older people that say, you know, we had sandwiches every day, and it's hate to kai, but we didn't have nutritionists back then to tell you, oh, you actually needed this kai instead of that kai.
Annie follows strict dietary requirements and nutritional plans.
If we hide our vegetables as well as we can, we'll have a lot more of our babies eating it. Spaghetti bolognese.
She also buys all the food, managing a tight budget.
You're doubling down on your vegetables. You're having a lot of lentils, a lot of beans.
At the start of the year, the budget for each meal was slashed by more than half, from $8.59 to only $4 by the coalition government.
What we're trying to do is control a deficit.
Oh, it's extremely tough. That's the part of my job, is to find innovative ways to continue on.
Timuaki Te Irirangi Tāwhara says her kura decided to keep making lunches in-house.
He kaha no rātou te aro ki ngā mahi a kura, a roto o waho i te ako manga, ko whāngai te puku, ko paia hine ngaro, ko taua wairua.
The benefits also spread further into the community, creating a local mini economy.
We have been able to employ our own whānau that love and have a high standard of care.
Te Niwaniwa is topping up its school lunch budget to keep high-quality lunches. However, this has resulted in an almost $30,000 deficit in the school's operating budget.
I ata whirawhira e ngā nama kaihia ngā wāhi pia katai te tango, pēnei te utu mo te hiko o te whare nei, ko ngā taonga hei whakapaipai, ko ngā kākuhu hoki mo ngā kaimahi. I tango here.
We operate off that theory that excellence is normal. So when you're feeding all of your kids, that's a standard of excellence that you want to maintain.
Lunch is served at 12:30 sharp.
Okay, up in mine, darling.
So what's the verdict?
Okay, what's for lunch, whānau? He hara te kai. Oh, he pasta. Reka. Grateful for everything. Aye. Better than a Marmite sandwich, no?
Annie knows the struggle many whānau go through in the Far North.
We tried to live by way of kai. There's a mindset, right, that our tamariki who live in poverty, where they feel not good enough. We want those kids to come to kura. We want them to be safe. We want them to engage in their mahi. Makes our job easy when they appreciate the kai. We'll do this all again, our pōpō. They are exactly who we need to invest in.
However, it's been the lunches provided by external providers that have been in the media spotlight.
Ka aroha ki ngā tamariki katoa roto Aotearoa I tēnei wā. Bit of a disgrace.
The main contract is run by the UK-based multinational Compass Group.
Bring it back home, try and localise it. Might cost a little bit more, but you're employing your family and you're feeding your family.
The kura knows it can't keep going into a deficit.
trying to introduce a tino fee for our whānau, whether it be $10 a child, so we can continue to have high quality kai. There will be some whānau that will struggle and we'll have to try and support them.
I'll be talking to some of the local iwi who've got some gardens, got some farms where we can get access to kai. Even if it means our kids go out and help bring the kai in.
Hone Harawira knows it's vital to keep this kaupapa going.
You reduce heaps of problems in school. And the bonus side is you're raising a generation of children who are healthy and happy and wanting to learn. Turn it around, David. It's not too late.
After the break, we have Kendra Cox, social work lecturer at Waipapato Auckland University, on school lunches and much more. Tautoko i huana. Kia ora mai anō. And joining our hui now is Kendra Cox, social work lecturer at the Faculty of Arts and Education at Waipapato, the University of Auckland. He uri no te ure ue nuku kōpako te whakatohea ngai tūhoe me ngā tīpuro. Kendra, tēnā koe. No mai. Thank you very much for joining us. Can I just get your response, first of all, to the work that I think many kura Māori are doing in feeding our tamariki? He pēhe o whakao.
Amazing mahi that these kura, these whare kura are doing for our tamariki, right? And I think that we can see even from this story with this kura is that we have some of our essential, you know, kind of Māori principles and values that are on display here. Whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, obligations, but also love, you know. Tamariki are our taonga, and these kura are showing that in practice, right? They're really showing how important these tamariki are.
We are told, and we hear the government's focus is on improving literacy, raising test scores, yet we know that tamariki, and not just ours, actually, many tamariki across Aotearoa are struggling to learn because they're hiakai. Do the actions, or does the way the government talk line up with the actions the government undertakes in this regard?
E kao, and great question, because I think this really shows the limits of the government's political rhetoric. On the one hand, they're saying that they care about all of these things, right? Literacy, absenteeism, math scores. But on the other hand, we know that one of the most important things that we can do for our whānau is to feed these kids, eh? So I think that really when it comes down to it, we have to be providing food. We have to be providing safe places for these tamariki to come together, because we know that when we provide food for these school lunches is that it's not just absenteeism, test scores, literacy. It also brings in other benefits for our tamariki, enhances their mana, whanaungatanga bonds between these tamariki, reduces stigma and discrimination for those who don't come, you know, with a nice flash kai to school as well.
We heard the minister when he took on this portfolio, I'm talking about David Seymour, was quick to talk about savings, right? He said he could do it cheaper but still deliver kai for those who needed it. So should we be targeting more specifically tamariki that need the kai, as opposed to saying, I'm not criticising, but as opposed to say the whole of kura or the whole of school approach in some instances?
I think there are two really important kind of parts to this question. And the first is this idea of targeting versus universal services. Yep. We know that universal services reduce discrimination for tamariki, and this goes not just for the school lunch program, but for any kind of program. So when we provide these lunches to tamariki in schools, it absolutely should be going to every single child that is in that school. It reduces stigma, reduces discrimination. Again, before I talked about, you know, whanaungatanga and how it brings kind of people together. As well as that, the sort of second part of that question is thinking about
targeting and
yes, yeah. So I'm just thinking about actually how the government has said that, you know, they need to increase savings and reduce spending in our public services. But when we look at, say, the 130 million that the government has said they have managed to save by reducing spending on this program, we know that it's not all about saving money, right? Because they've also given $1.9 billion to increase corrections funding and $2.9 billion as tax refunds for landlords. So how much really is savings on the agenda for this government?
So when you hear the Prime Minister say that parents should be feeding their tamariki, giving them Marmite sandwiches and an apple for lunch, what was your thinking when you heard that?
Marmite sandwiches are fine. You know, if you come from a whānau where you have hot, healthy food that's on the table for breakfast and dinner as well. The reality of life for many of our whānau is that many kids don't get that. We know that the cost of living has increased hugely over the past few years. Rental prices have gone up by 25% since March of 2020. We have more whānau that are in receipt of a main income benefit now. 12% it's gone up in the past year, December 2024 versus December 2023. Times are very, very tough for whānau.
So is the Prime Minister simply completely disconnected and out of touch with the reality of the situation for many families in Aotearoa now?
Yeah, disconnection is one part of it, right? I don't think that the Chris Luxons and David Seymours of this world truly represent the diversity of our whānau that live in our communities. But also, I think it's really important to recognise that this is a political program. So they actually do know what is happening in our communities, right? They get all of this evidence that's presented to them from their staff, from other agencies. They had the State of the Nation report from the Salvation Army wind up on their desks, you know, a couple of months ago, which showed that 25% of all families that have a child in Aotearoa experience food insecurity, which means that these whānau are saying that they go without food sometimes or often. That's worse in whānau Māori, and it's up to 50% of all Pacific families are going without food sometimes or often. So they know that this is happening, they know that these are issues, and yet they continue with this political program.
The political program also includes things like non-financial sanctions, particularly for benefit holders, for beneficiaries. As a social worker, what do you make of that approach?
Yes. Benefit sanctions. We know from research that's been done in Aotearoa and worldwide that these absolutely do not work to support people into mahi. All that they do is they drive people further into poverty, they make people disconnect from welfare services. They don't actually do anything positive. There was huge research that was done in the UK after the global financial crisis, which really showed the only thing that helped was jobs, having jobs right out in the community. And as I said earlier, there's 12% more people that are in receipt of a main income benefit December 2024 versus December 2023. This is not a case of people not being able to work. Those who can work often want to work, but the jobs are not there.
But there will be, and given that supposedly the economy has turned around, that's the latest reports, that the policy of retrenchment seems to be helping the economy. That's what the narrative would suggest from commentators. Is that the case? Or are we in a situation potentially where we are putting beneficiaries in a much worse position than they were previously?
Aye, tika. Yes, 100%. As much as they might call them non-financial sanctions, you know, in terms of money management, where, say, up to half of a person's income from their benefit might go specifically to pay rent, we know that that does not leave enough to cover, you know, everything else. First of all, oftentimes it won't even cover a person's rent. The median rent in Auckland is over $600. But also it means that people aren't able to pay their power bill. You know, people aren't able to put food on the table. So there's a very, you know, it's definitely illustrative of the kind of war on the poor that this government has been engaging in.
Final question. Is there any evidence supporting the government's current approach? Because it seems from talking to you that the evidence suggests otherwise.
Exactly. There is no evidence to support the government's current approach in terms of benefit sanctions. As I said earlier, the only thing that will help support people who can work into work is the creation of jobs. And even going back to the school lunch issue, you know, we had jobs in communities, we had jobs that people were proud of in terms of putting food on the table for these tamariki. So we can see again that it's not really about jobs, it's not really about saving money, it's a specific political program that this government is engaging in a war on the poor.
Kendra, tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate your presence on the program. Kia ora maira. It was, of course, Kendra Cox. E te iwi hei muri I ngā whakatairanga e hare ake ana after the break. On our hui, we look back at the impressive flotilla at Waitangi and the many hands that brought it to life. Hoki mai anō ki tātātou hui. Every Waitangi Day, a fleet of traditional waka descend on Waitangi to commemorate, celebrate and acknowledge our founding document. Now this year, more than 20 waka from around the motu joined the flotilla, with Ngā Toki Matawhāorua leading the way. Mea nei te pūrongo, Arewa Harriman.
ngā toki mata whaurua, he waka tipuna no te tai tokerau.
If you're talking imperial, ngā toki mata whaurua is 116 feet and 8 inches. If you're talking metric, it's about 37 plus meters. Filled up with men, it's about 16 ton.
Ia tau ka whakanuia te rā o Waitangi e ngā toki mata whaurua me ona kaihoe ko tahi rau neke atu.
So ngā toki has been tautoking Waitangi since 1940. There's a long, long history. Our ngā toki has supported the signing of the treaty and celebrated, I suppose. So that's the hohonutanga, the depth of what ngā toki has done. And now you see the fruits of ngā toki walking around here with 800 kaihoe.
Ko Joe Conrad te kaihautu o ngā toki, ko ia hoki te kaitiaki I tēnei kaupapa waka ki Waitangi.
Nui here te kaupapa, nui here ngā tangatai harimena mo tātou wahine, mo tātou nei kōtiro, we tahi e kaumātua e rapuana the fountain of youth pia. Maha ngā Pākehā ko tai mai kone iaiane, rapuana te mātauranga o te kaupapa. Ngā ākoa iaha momo koe, o tehea whenua koe, ko here mai kone.
I've been involved in the waka kaupapa for about 35 years. All of my brothers and sisters come. My dad still comes. He's the reason that we all started coming in the first place, because he was one of the paddlers in 1990. I was a little bailer. So over the years I've progressed slightly, and now I get to do more work.
Ko tētahi o ana mahi, he whakaako I te haka, ka hakaina ai e ngā kaihoe katoa.
I think it's important for me that when we have new kaihoe that come along, they want to learn and be part of the kaupapa, that we give them some awhi, we give them some tautoko, and so what better way than teaching them our haka, so that they can then spread that message of the haka, but also it's another thing that can bring us together, so that when we come together and do the haka on the beach, we see once again te kotahitanga o te ao Māori.
Ko Tent City tēnei, te wāhi e noho ai ngā kaihoe o te tai tokerau, o te motu whānui anō hoki.
I think we'll probably climb to 800. Easy. You just have to ask the cooks. They'll know how many plates they washed.
They're really good. They help out. They always come and they go, Auntie, you need help? They take my rubbish, they wash the dishes and things like that, set the tables, help serve. So they're always there to help, yeah.
The infrastructure is huge to get this up and running every year. The whawhai to get it up and running. The mea nui ko ngā pūtea to have the waka launched, to logistically get the waka from other parts of the country here, to the food, to the cooks. Everything that's here has been donated or by aroa, by koha. The only cost we get off the government is to stand accommodation for our people and make sure that they have a place to sleep for 6 or 7 days.
Ki uta ki tai, ka mahitahi ngā kaihoe, I mua I te rā o Waitangi, ka whakahara tau ki ngā wai o te pē whairangi.
Mo ngā tau rua te kaukota hake nei, ko hoki mai tō tātou waka ki te whakanui I ngā rangatira I Waitohungia I te tiriti o Waitangi. I tēnei tau, kei te kitea hau, I ngā momo waka o te motu, ko whakahokia mai, ko whakaeke nei ki runga kia Waitangi, me te hariko o te ngākau, me te tuki o te ngākau I te mea, te maha hoki o ngā waka, ka whakatere ki tō tātou nei, ki te whakanui tō tātou nei rā o Waitangi. Ko oti, ko ea te noho wāhirua o ngā waka o tātou mātou, tātou tūpuna.
Ka tūtaki anō ngā kaihoe kia rātau anō, ka mehitahi, ka kōrerotahi, ka hoitahi.
I'm looking close to 20 waka on water this year. 20 waka on water. Te mea nui ke, I te ke kone te kauau, ko haka hoki ngama I Ngāti whātua ki roto e raro te kaupapa waka.
Kua tae ki te rā o Waitangi. Ai whakarite ana ngā kaihoe kia tutuki ai a rātou mahi rangatira.
Usually we all congregate all the waka at the front of Te Ti Marae to pay homage to the mahi that our tūpuna did in signing Te Tiriti o Waitangi. But every few years, the tides are against us. And the changing of those tides, it becomes really difficult to manoeuvre so many waka. So hence the reason we made the decision this year to start on the beach and then take our waka out.
Ki au he miharo ki te kiti ngā waka katoa. Ngā waka tawhito, ngā waka o ngā wā o mua, ngā waka o nai anei hoki. Nō reire, mihi ana hau ki ngā waka katoa ko tae mai ki te whakanui I tēnei rā whakahirahira, I runga anō I te kaupapa o te waitohu o te tiriti o Waitangi.
Ahakoa he nui ngā kōrero tō rangapū mo te rā o Waitangi, he rereke te aronga o te kaupapa waka nei.
You know, kaupapa waka has no political agenda. In a way, we've been protesting long before you became protesters. Out on the water, we show the world that our culture is important, our kaupapa is important. I don't have to go and fly a flag to say that I'm protesting against what was done to my tūpuna. I do it in my art, I do it in my tamariki, I do it in my waka, to say we're still here. Remember how we came here.
E Aotearoa Māori ne. Hei tui kia tu mai nei e hoa mā, coming up next week on The Hui.
When you become a teenager, you turn into this different creature.
Getting rangatahi back on track.
Stolen cars and joy riding and breaking into vehicles is a big thing.
An alternative way of cracking down on youth crime.
It's a safe space for them.
Using wakaama to make a difference.
I felt like I was misunderstood. He doesn't see me as a bad person or anything like that. He doesn't hold any of the stuff I've done in the past against me.
I think that his potential is limitless.
And the Tararaki cop turning the tide.
And all of a sudden you've got these champion kids reconnecting families together with our culture, because that's how we heal.
That's our hui next week e hoa mā. Join us then. Until then, kia mau ki te tūranga o taputapu Ātea. Haumi e, hui e, taiki e. Nā te puna whakatongarewa, te hui I tautoko.